There is a plan for the City of Toronto. It's called the Official Plan, and it's subdivided into areas of. It wouldn't associate them with neighborhoods, but they reflect special characteristics. And when the official plan is working well, it represents a vision of the city that development, that community can see themselves in, either to add to those contexts and create buildings and parks, institutions, or that they see themselves in it and they say, I want to live there. You know, I can see my family, my interests reflected in the physical form of what that official plan describes. Official plans have varied in at least a few ways. A couple that I can think of are the heritage components of it in the past have been weakened in the way they were structured in the official plan. That goes back about 15 years. They were vulnerable to becoming seen as isolated objects. Much like you would put an animal in a zoo. You would think of a building, a heritage building, as being something that was to be preserved, a kind of anachronism, and can be then manipulated, keep the facade, turn it around, move it around. And as opposed to and it was big business, it is big business to treat buildings like that, very big business. And as opposed to thinking of buildings, and in the case of remarkable buildings, historic buildings, as the texture, the very fabric of social life and cultural life, and having a huge influence on the form and quality of contemporary building. Without that definition, I think those areas of the official plan turn into just clever areas for clever tricks, and communities that come out of it rather confused and concerned. We're going through an extraordinary time, as everyone knows, in Toronto. The pressures for redevelopment are emphasizing higher density. In the course of achieving those goals and connecting it with the condominium market, you're having buildings of great height. Great height has led to Section 37, which is a vehicle for negotiating enhanced public realm in return for building to 30, 40 floors, sometimes 2-3 times the allowable density, even more. And the point is to the section is that you're going to get something for it. Public realm will be enhanced, and you know the imagination goes wild about just how much quality that would obviously yield. Trouble is, we've seen in many presentations, we have a very odd condition where we're looking at buildings of 50 floors in areas which should have 20 by the official plan, 60 floors, 70 floors. And we're looking at public realm, which is basically many, many times, we've seen this, basically a promotional literature. And we see facsimiles of people. We see facsimiles of public life. Sometimes better than that, but certainly there is a concern that the loading of our cities and streets, which are already poor examples of public space, most of them, I'd say 80% of them, that we're not seeing the order of magnitude of benefit at grade. We're loading them up, and there's a huge question as to whether they can sustain that kind of population. We're building a city that will push into the future, but is it the one that we want is the question. And from what I see of the big players, it's been made into a business, and we're getting far less than what we should. Everyone on panel is concerned about that. better. If we followed the official plan without making it into a field day or letting it be a kind of playground for lawyers and angles and opportunists, which all too often is the way things do go. If we were sincere about addressing those issues, environmental issues, sustainable issues, which are so easy to slip from the conversation, and we see that every time the Design Review panel, it's extraordinary. If we were to stick to that official plan, I think we would do amazing things. But we think that just by writing it, that all of a sudden we've solved the problem. And obviously it requires that cultural commitment, which I do see emerging. It requires institutions, it requires the activism that goes along with it. It requires people having the expectation that the next building is going to be great. And they don't have to read a book about it to find out whether it's great or not. They just know it reflects something about themselves. It's something that they want to live in and identify with.